It's Thursday. It's May 18th, 2023. Today was field day for my son. There was a Patriot Challenge obstacle course that I volunteered to help the children and the teachers and the staff of the school. In doing that, I'm still working on monetary kind of sort of in a not really type of a way. On FX, they have this Jason Bourne, the one in 2016. This conversation is really interesting. I'm going to play it before I lose it. And then I have current events that I'm concerned about.
Or into your new platform in a way past the encryption.
And when that's not enough, you want something new. You don't get it, do you? Privacy is freedom. Or maybe that's something you should think about defending.
You little prick.
I want to say that this gentleman, the one that just spoke to him in that manner, reminds me of the, I don't know if it's CEO or COO, I don't know his name, but of Google. I made mention of it. I made a note of it on 60 Minutes when it came on. I didn't realize the reference to here. I don't have cheat codes or like cheat sheets. Again, there is a man who has a wife, Kim, and two daughters I would like to speak to eventually. But and that comes in relevance in a little bit. But it is interesting when the children of the ancestors of North America with the working monetary system that with ties into the US of America, when they start to feel threatened in their own homeland, when and where is their domestic security become priority to some of the corporate pieces, meaning Google and some of their, like, just for instance, I mean, travel really concerns me with international traveling being as open as it has been. Um, International sports is another one. I'm not talking Olympics, that's special permission, that is a special council. I'm talking about particularly football, soccer, really frightening. Um, Only one I'm aware of. Golf is another one. I don't know why international sports and those clubs are not shut down immediately when it becomes a domestic and an international terrorist problem. So this frightens me, as well as some of the local events that have been going on in the Queens area. And so I spoke to a next gen, he's a year older than Alexander, and I alerted him to some of my local security concerns, just so he knows in his life frame where one concerned mom was in the field, wherever his life journey takes him. I wanted him to know and I wanted him to look because he was there with all the children of the elementary school going through this Patriot Challenge. I wanted him just to be aware of some of the things locally that I've found out. So I had a witness that has no ties to any organization that I'm aware of, just in the field, like random mom runs into some boy that's her son's age and he's got a whole life ahead of him. And I have some real concerns in the field and I don't know who to report them to.
Didn't believe in privacy or freedom when we funded your startup, turned you into a billionaire.
I paid you back many, many, many times over, and I was never comfortable with any of this. I'm out. I'm done selling out our customers.
But you would sell out your country. The truth is, we wouldn't be having this conversation if you didn't feel personally at risk. You talk about a free internet, you tell yourself you're saving the world, but all you're doing is making it a much more dangerous place, and you're sure as hell making this country much more difficult to defend. And you're sure as hell accountable for that, Aaron. Accountable.
That's where I'm at the moment. It just feels like they're making it harder to defend this area of New York and this country with all of the, let's use the NFL for example. Although they're not the only one, because I'm not letting the MLB or the NBA off the hook. I've seen their hiring practices, and it's very concerning. They were at one time all white leagues, and when I turn on the TV today, it's been a complete 180 from where they began. So that looks like an area of red flag concern for my own personal safety. It looks like a threat to national security. It actually looks like they're trying to do a regime change. And I know it's an action that they take from multi avenues. But then I hear like the SS today is on making themselves aware. Her name just happens to be Kim and cheat something or other for cheat codes. And I'm like, oh, look at that. And she comes off in her like employee like dynastics, and she's like saying that they're looking to diversify and employ all sorts. I'm like, again, there's still ancestors here in the local area on the Northeast corridor. And that statement or that rumor that she then televised sounds like that's in direct opposite of what needs to be done. There's so many employee networks and corporations that have diversified, and now they've got corporate boards and shareholders. There has to be one secure operation that protects the seeds of the regime that holds the monetary value. I also happen to mention to the kid that what concerns me a lot is these divestments into alternate currency, meaning crypto, he's like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all of that, and straying away from the actual solid dollar that's backed by something, and that being the like gold standard. And in my day, those actions were treated as treason against the living. I mean, there's a very real reason to have a currency, and it's tied into territorial management. When that territorial management and your way of life that you grew up on and expect to be there is being threatened and challenged, and some of the ancestors are not even in lines of communication directly with the powers that are in the works, that's even more frightening. Now, in this movie, it happens to be one of the wars that my grandfather was doing his special notary on. My grandfather, my direct ancestor, my nono, was the Albania and Gracia. And that's mentioned also in here for my Jason-born children. Who are whatever, and I'm keeping an eye from now into the future to make sure that there's not some upheaval and regime change that could have been prevented, because that says a lot about the military and the management if these things keep going on and creeping into the wrong direction. So I'm just putting placement stakes in the grounds of, I see what they've put out. This came out in 2016, it's 2023, and now here's my current events of what they're alerting me of, which is further concerning me about this globalist agenda at GS security, cybersecurity being the CS, family security at FS, and then corporate security at CS. Okay, here's her, Kim Cheatley, director of the Secret Service.
Enough to allow.
So now in alphabet soup, this is SS, Secret Service. So I'm just saying the Interior Secret Service still uses some form of this currency with these presidents. And this White House, which is displayed above as well, which is where her SS is working out of. Now, in rumors in the field, throughout history, I've never heard of the SS as an organization that was seemed as friendly or diversified. It seemed really very clearly it was marked for a different purpose, and I don't know why she's televising. Perhaps management can have a conversation and like realign and make sure like whoever's seated in chairs are really working for the safety and security of the next gens and of the presidential children that still reside inside the homeland domestic Northern America. Because by the looks of what's going on in New York City, it looks like there's some attempted coup or like regime change directly in New York City. And I don't know who's to blame or who's behind it, and I don't have direct communication with them.
Take a tour of it. Did it feel like the White House?
It did. She would know. The 28-year veteran was on the team that evacuated Vice President Dick Cheney on 9/11, and she served on then Vice President Biden's protective detail. He named her director in mid-2022. Amid a swirl of controversy over the agency deleting nearly all of its text messages from January 6th. The agency says that was due to a data migration.
System migrations happen, but I think for a lot of Americans, it just doesn't pass the smell test given the timing and the volume of messages deleted. Well, it's unfortunate that that would be the assumption that people would make. Our integrity is everything, and there was nothing nefarious attached to that.
Their integrity has been put to the test, not only by the mishap at the National Security Advisor's home, but by misconduct over the years, including off-duty agents hiring sex workers in Colombia before an Obama trip and a drunken altercation in South Korea last year.
We've implemented a number of things previous to me becoming the director, and then continuing as I've been the director. I've made sure that the workforce knows that misconduct won't be tolerated. We ensure that there's a full investigation that's taken place whenever there is an allegation. If we need to put a person on admin leave or revoke their security clearance, we'll do that.
Another challenge, recruitment and retention.
My question is with that Google representative, now that he's in like the head seat, are funding future presidential children difficult inside the borders of North America? I mean, for future White House tickets? Again, I'm just curious because it looks like if the CEO decides to give a problem to the government, I mean, like, especially in New York, I can see that I have not been internally funded correctly. They've left me out of the system completely, and at some point attempted to completely destroy my ability to have children in the correct bloodline for which I was born and destined for. So again, I have all these things that actually really happened, true story. And then I see the fictional versions of my story. And then with seeds, and there's like some statue of Athena that's really important somewhere in the Gratian files.
Retention, something all law enforcement is struggling with. But the Secret Service's departure rate was 48% last year, due in part to the high demands of the job. To expand hiring, they're aiming to have 30% women recruits by 2030, and even allowed YouTube influencer Michelle Carre to train with agents.
But I'm very conscious as I sit in this chair now of making sure that we need to attract diverse candidates and ensure that we are developing and giving opportunities to everybody in our workforce, and particularly women.
Particularly women's one thing, but conflict of interest. I mean, I've heard how the SS operates in the past according to the history books and some really angry propaganda that's been put out there. So I'm just confused why it now is changing to a more family friendly, like just everybody's included. It just doesn't seem like it's keeping the presidential children safe, or the foundational children, which then puts in direct harm and almost opens up regime change talks, which should never be. I mean, that should have been thwarted. Isn't that the purpose? Now, who handles that? Is that what the CIA is supposed to do at central level of intelligence? Is to shut it down before it even happens?
That workforce will be pivotal for the 2024 campaign season, which for the first time includes a former president who already has lifetime protection. Agents were there when Donald Trump was arraigned in New York.
We were able to work out the details ahead of time of how that particular day was going to go, but we will always ensure the safety of all of our protectees that we have.
The service has a
Now, here's some of my concerns with International Sports League and using former, like that diversifying the employees and international recruitment from all over that the NFL started to employ, as well as NBA, as well as MLB, and then this enhancement of the soccer club. It looks like that with the international travel restrictions being so lax, there are a lot of areas of security that I am quite frankly frightened of on a day-to-day basis. And moving forward, if I look at it, if I sit and I astroplane, I'm very concerned between this world and the next for the children and grandchildren and then their forward.
For the 2026 games.
This looks like
revealed it at Times
organized
Square
regime
earlier
change
today.
attempts.
New York City and New Jersey submitted a joint bid to host matches at MetLife Stadium during the tournament. FIFA named the region as a host city last June, and right now we know at least 8 games will be played, but there is a chance for more. Giants legend Michael Strahan spoke about the amazing opportunity for the stadium that he called home for years.
It's going to be dynamic. It's going to be exciting. And for the next few years, as we...
Now, here's former NFL, so they're telling me, and here's current mayor. I'm seeing regime attempts along with some break-ins to the financials, trying to stray away from the currency with the dollar, and a whole lot of people movement and human trafficking that seems to be a bit chaotic and seems to be on the rise in the wrong direction, with unexplained vagrants from other territories now being bussed into New York. Mayor Adams said yesterday on the local news that the hotel industry that would have loved to have had travelers coming to see Broadway shows and restaurants and things are now being filled up at like some 50% capacity with, he calls them migrants. I call them vagrants because they have no money. Who and how are they going to support themselves here? And they're already talking debt ceiling limits at the monetary system that we currently have. I mean, it all looks like a staged attempt from multi-vassals in order to overthrow the president and the United States government. And every time I turn the TV on, it's what I see. I see it in the movies. I see it in the current events. I see it in my local area. And I don't know where to turn and how International Criminal Court is working in order to stop these threats from foreign into domestic. And then once the domestic starts to fester, how to unfetter oneself from any corporate restrictions to get the problem removed immediately before it sends more problems. Here's buses, and here's the city workers talking about this asylum crisis.
Arrival of migrants. Despite these changes, the deputy mayor insists they are not backing off from the idea.
The school was always going to be what we've called a respite site, short term. And the reason we had to do it was because of the influx that we've gotten. I think over the past day, there was one day where we got over 900 people in one day.
On some days, more than 900 people coming into our city on top of the 67,000 that we've been able to help so far, it means that we have to be opening many new places.
The mayor says at this point, about half of the city's hotels are occupied by asylum seekers. And he says the city is just having a difficult time finding other hotels that are willing to house the migrants. Outside of the Port Authority, Janice Yu, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Now to the weather.
I guess at this point, it's really like waiting. I saw the A Team on FX that came out in 2010. It's 2023. I just saw it. This one scene really sticks out in my mind. Now, two of the guard dogs go in to attack him, and they come out handcuffed to one another. Is that the representative in the shadows, and here is the Democrat and the Republican, or like parties at this point? Because both parties have been affected, both parties have been involved, and both parties still have not made significant progress in order to find some form of sustainability based on the fact that New York has had such a radical regime change, significant, after the Democratic Party put into the White House a radical change that doesn't even match White House standards of the monetary system to let and signal the rest of the territory, country, and then world that we're safe, that we're a safe investment, that we're a safe territory. I mean, all of these things are interlocking features of integrity within the system. But there has been some real big tracking and signaling changes that have gone on, and then totally unaddressed as far as I can hear. And it sounds like it's going in the wrong direction. Now, yesterday, I received at the residence a Happy Mother's Day card from somebody. I was not expecting it, but it was mailed to the residence from from Zion, which I thought was a really sweet gesture, and I greatly appreciated it. So thank you. I finished reading The Shadow Project, and as an afterthought, they mention in the text, it says that it's a fictional book, but it says, but some of the most incredible aspects of the story are based on fact. It mentions the CIA inside of here. So it's not just in the movie theaters, it's actually factually based. Not that I have any like office per se that I can see or know, but, and then it goes into, they had an official remote viewing program, and it goes into ESP, extrasensory perception research, at agency level. It also speaks about some other parts, some key op words in here. Robert Monroe is in there, the American businessman. and it has it again. It just it talks about a bunch of different pieces in here. Um, Carrier for telepathy, healing, and other things. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.